How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are in Demon's Souls, continuing our run through the FromSoft catalog of Souls-like games, figuring out if we can one-shot bosses in the max New Game Plus cycle. Now, if you've never played Demon's Souls before, and you have played some of the Souls games, you will know that sorcery, especially in Dark Souls, and even to some extent Dark Souls 2, are some of the most powerful options that you can utilize. However, Demon's Souls takes that to a whole another level, as we're going to see in the video today. So let's get into it. I'm going to go through all the bosses in the general order that a player would usually fight them in, or at least the intended order. That means we're going 1-1, 1-2, then we'll do all of the first bosses and all the worlds, all the second bosses, third bosses, and we'll finish out with the False King and True King a lot. I'm also checking whether or not we can get close to the red and blue dragons in World 1, as well as Old King Doran in World 1-1 as well. That being said, let's get into it with the first boss of the run, the Phalanx. First up is the Phalanx, and to show you just how busted of a spell Firestorm is, we go in with the weakest catalyst, the Silver Catalyst, and no Hyper Mode, although we do wear our head wrappings and have on the Ring of Magical Sharpness. Next up is one of the harder bosses, in my opinion, in the game, given where you typically fight him in the Tower Knight. And this is where some of the damage stacking in Demon's Souls really shines, where we not only use the Clever Rat's Ring, but we also have a Marion Blade in our offhand, which, yes, they do indeed stack with all of the other buffs that we have. This is the general setup that we use for most bosses in this run, so most of them I won't have a large spiel unless there is something that I should remark upon. We take our first trip to World 2 to take on the Armor Spider, and it, like the later bosses in this stage, have a pretty high resistance to fire, so we make use of Homing Soul Arrow, which acts more like Soul Mass from Dark Souls 1-3, and we are able to offhand another Marion Blade, switching it over from the Insanity Catalyst once we have the spell in effect. The Fool's Idol is the first boss of World 3, and it's a little tough just thanks to the relatively small hitbox that she has, but as long as you get good RNG with some of the fire pillars, you are able to take her down in a one-shot as well. We make a quick stop before the Adjudicator in World 4 and take out the Vanguard Demon. And for the Adjudicator himself, we make use of the same strategy as the Armor Spider, given the fact that Firestorm will not work when he is standing upright. The last of the first Archstone bosses is the Leechmonger, and while his setup is the same as pretty much every other boss, I want you to take note of the amount of damage totaling over 35,000 damage, which is the highest amount that we were able to do to any boss in both this run and I believe across any of the runs that I've done so far, and will likely outpace any damage that we're able to do in any of the runs that I will do in the future. Continuing from the Dark Souls 3 video, I'm doing a bit of a splash screen after we take down a round of bosses. So I'll do this one after these, after the second bosses, and the Archdemons as well. So the first run through with the Phalanx, the Tower Knight, the Armor Spider, Fool's Idol, the Vanguard Demon, you know, not really a boss per se, but in World 4-1, as well as the Adjudicator, and the Leechmonger, all ending in a very cool one-shot. It's great to see. Now, I had some trouble finding the maximum HP in the New Game Plus 5 cycle, so what I'm giving here is an estimate of about where I think their HP stands. I'm not sure if it's linear in this game. I know it's different in some of the later FromSoft game catalog. So again, this is just my estimate. Again, couldn't really find a good source for what the actual amount is. So let's keep on moving. Starting off the second round of bosses, we take on what most people consider to be one of, if not the toughest boss in the game, in the Flame Lurker. As he is immune to fire, we have to do the homing soul arrow as well, and this is the first boss that we are unable to one-shot. The Man-Eaters are also a notoriously difficult boss, however, this is one where we make a complete joke. Interesting to note about this fight is if you do kill the Man-Eater that is on the stage to begin with really quickly, the second one comes in a lot quicker because they don't want you just standing around. This is also the only time I had to use any consumables in these fights, and that was just to refill our MP bar. Neither the old hero nor the Dirty Colossus were able to withstand our incredible amount of damage output. Second round of bosses, also a very good success. However, we did find ourselves being unable to one-shot the Flame Lurker, which is unfortunate, but I'm not going to complain given the fact that we can one-shot 3 out of the 4. Again, if you've ever played this, the reason I'm not including the Penetrator demon in this round is you have to beat an Archdemon first before you can advance to 1, 3, and beyond. One interesting thing to note here, I didn't really talk about this in the Flame Lurker fight itself, but the Insanity Catalyst that we're using has a maximum spell buff of I think 230, which I thought was the highest coming into this playthrough, but in fact the Talisman of Beasts, the talisman that can cast both miracles and spells, actually caps out at 240. Now I don't think, given the amount of damage that we were able to do to the Flame Lurker, that it would have mattered, because I was rocking around, I think, a 217, 218 when I went into that fight, and given how much damage we were able to do to the Flame Lurker, I don't think adding on that additional spell buff would have mattered. However, it's not 100% guarantee that that is the case, but I feel pretty comfortable in saying that. Still, again, getting as many one-shots as we were able to do so, I am totally fine with the results from that round. The Dragon God took the longest amount of time to kill in this run. That's just thanks to how his boss arena is oriented. This is one of the very few times, in fact I think the only time, where we do not use a spell to take out the boss. I just felt like doing this in melee because I wanted to see if it was possible, and indeed it was. If you are curious, I am using the Master's Ring, which gives you additional hits, or additional damage rather, on a sweet spot hit. I don't think that the Dragon Bone Crusher has that bonus, but there's not really another ring that we can wear, so I just put it on in case. This was my test run, so it didn't matter in the end. For the old monk, there is an option, of course, of going online and facing another player character. However, I did not want to subject anybody to that in this run, so I just felt like fighting the default NPC. Storm King was the second longest fight behind the Dragon God, and this was the only enemy in the game, at least in terms of story bosses, that is airborne. Of course, the red and blue dragons in World 1 are also flying enemies that cannot be hit by Firestorm. So this, I had to take an alternate approach. Again, we get very, very close, as you'll see in this fight, to one-shotting. However, we were just not able to get enough damage. This one, I think maybe it's possible if you do use a fully juiced out Talisman of Beasts that you could get a little closer, but just looking at the amount of health that he has left after that hit, I don't think it is possible. In addition, the Storm Ruler that you use in this fight generally just does not do nearly as much damage as some of the spells you can cast, which is the reason why I'm not showing that here. The second to last Archdemon is Maiden Astraea, and if you've played this game before and you have killed Garl Vinland, then you'll know after a couple of seconds Maiden Astraea will go by the wayside as well, but I wanted to see if our damage would be able to kill her in one shot rather than taking that method. I did not try Garl Vinland because he's not really a boss, even though he's kind of a tough fight, which I think is a cool fight mechanic, but that's not really the point of this video. Penetrator is often cited as most people's favorite or top 3 bosses in this game, and I think his cutscene is really cool, so that's why I'm letting that play out. Fortunately for him, the setup that we're using makes him a bit of a joke when it comes to this fight. We'll go back to World 1 to take on some of the mini-bosses, that being the Red Dragon, as well as Old King Doran. The Red Dragon, you can see on the screen, we don't do nearly enough damage to even consider a one-shot. Do a good amount of damage, but again, not even close. Same can be said for King Doran, who takes a considerable amount of damage in the melee attempt. And the magic attempt, I was not able to get nearly as close. I do only hit him with 1 pillar of fire, and in theory, if you hit him with like 8 or 9, maybe you could, but the most I've seen an NPC take is, I think, 3, maybe 4 pillars, so really no shot at one-shotting him as well. Our final real boss of the run is False King Alat. And we have to, of course, let the entire elevator sequence play out because it is kind of funny just in terms of how long it takes. This is another boss where you do need to get some good RNG, but once you do get some good flame pillar placement, it's really no issue of getting the one-shot. Finally, we have the True King inside the old one, and a pretty cool boss from a narrative standpoint, in my opinion. You know, I do like a good tough final fight, like Gwyn or Radibes from Elden Ring, but I think this is a good way to tell a story.
But God is merciful, and so created the Old One, a poison to the poison. The Old One will feed upon our souls and put an end to this tragedy. You fool! Don't you understand? No one wishes to go on.
So, excluding the true final boss, which is True King Allant, again, we find ourselves being able to one-shot all but one of the Archdemons, and again, similar to the Flame Lurker, I'm pretty sure that increasing the spell buff of the Talisman that we're using all the way up to the maximum of 240 with the Talisman of Beasts would not have made a difference, and again, I'm not 100% sure on that, but I really did not feel like grinding all the way up to 99 intelligence and 99 faith. So we're stuck with what we have here in this video. The red and blue dragons do show that one fight against the red dragon. The reason I didn't include the blue dragon is, well, its HP is juiced even further beyond the red dragon, and its resistances are higher as well. As far as Old King Doran, I don't think I mentioned this in the actual fight against him, but it is noted that in the melee attempt, I believe that I was able to get him down to the threshold where he will acknowledge you and allow you to take the Demon Brant, or the Soul Brant, whichever one of the swords he gives you. So, if you are wanting to get that trophy, if you just use a build similar to this with 66 strength, a maxed out Dragon Bone Crusher, and Cursed Weapon, then you can kind of skip through that real quick fight, at least the portion that you do before he'll give you the sword. So, I'll do the final fight, and then we'll send it home. If you'd enjoyed this video, I want to say thanks for watching, and if you did enjoy it, please feel free to consider leaving a like and a subscription. My goal for this year is to get 1,000 subs by maybe around the start of summer, I think is a good target. I do have plans to do this same challenge in Elden Ring, as well as some other Souls content. So thank you all again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.